Hi folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Today's episode, we're reviewing a very closely linked pair of books. The principal thing we're reviewing is d20 Dark Matter. This is a supplement for d20 Modern, and it's more of a campaign setting, set of ideas. It is a reprint and conversion of the original Dark Matter setting, which was sort of alternity, which is back in the days when it was TSR going into Wizards of the Coast. It was a version of a science fiction game they had. This was an alternative setting. Star Drive was their principal outer space opera setting. Dark Matter was more their X-Files modern conspiracy setting. And the second book we're going along with here is d20 Menace Manual, which, to be honest with you, you almost have got to have this book to effectively use Dark Matter. So let's talk about Dark Matter first. This is, as I said, a campaign setting. A lot of conspiracy campaign settings are very firmly and thoroughly mired in the 90s. That was very fertile ground for that era. You had X-Files, which I think really paved the way for that. This is probably the closest thing we have to an X-Files role-playing game. Everyone always points to Delta Green, and Delta Green was so thoroughly stuck with the Cthulhu mythos, and it was really hard to divorce there, that I never thought that it really did well for X-Files. This does a pretty good job. In this game, you work for the Hoffman Institute, which is this independent organization that supposedly looks for new sources of energy, but in reality just investigates some of the weirdness that goes on in the world. What kind of weirdness are we talking about? It could be paranormal. It could be monsters like werewolves, vampires. It could be extraterrestrial. It could just be downright funkiness. One of the conceits of this game is that there is a rising tide of dark matter, which is this strange material that we can't detect, but we know it's out there and we know it's in particulate form, that causes this rise of dark matter in the galaxy that causes a change in the world. Certain tides of this correspond to great incidences or great catastrophes. The Hoffman Institute's entire background is to investigate this. It also gives you a lot of other organizations that may be working for good, may be working against humanity. You never quite know, which include, interestingly enough, the Rosicrucians. It includes the Masonic Lodge. It includes a lot of other government agencies. One thing that's interesting about this is, as a Hoffman Institute agent, you're not a cop or you're not a Fed. You are working for an independent organization, and you really have no legal right to see those crime scene photos. So it does bring in that little layer of, oh crap, we have no backup here. Really, it's pretty dangerous that way. This also brings in a lot of conspiracies from the past, like there are alien races that have been running around interacting with us for a long time, which brings us to d20 Menace Manual. This, like I said, is almost required, in my opinion, to really do a good job with Dark Matter, because the Dark Matter book keeps referring to, this is a sort of critter you can see, and refer you back to the d20 Menace Manual for stats. What d20 Menace Manual does is it's sort of a monster's manual, or a critter's companion, if you will. Some of these you'll recognize, like a Star Doppelganger, which is pretty much the monster from John Carpenter's The Thing, with the serial numbers filed off. And also this satanic ichor, which is also the sludge in the bottle from John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. There's also a lot of conversions from other alternative monsters. There are the Werin, which were really the Sasquatch in this game. You have the Shishayan. You have the Frawl, which are the Greys. Folks, this is a nice book if you like d20 Modern and you want a series of monsters for them to fight other than what's already included in the book. This is a great way for you to go. I like Dark Matter. It's not my favorite conspiracy game. That honestly needs to go to Delta Green, I'm afraid. But what this does is it gives you a conspiracy game with a lot of monsters and a lot of ideas that aren't heavily wed to another setting, like Delta Green. So, that being said, you do, in my opinion, need d20 Menace Manual to effectively run the Dark Matter game. I know I keep bringing up Delta Green with this a lot. In my opinion, the two settings really invite comparison to one another. They're both conspiracies, they're both about critters, and they're very different games, honestly. One's very heavily united with the mythos, one is very independent and works on its own. The D20 modern version of Dark Matter setting retails for about $29.95 and is available through Wizards of the Coast or any friendly local game store you have out there. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming.